How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video, we're going to talk about our next potential snowstorms that are expected to impact the Midwest as well as the Northeast. We have this first storm system that's currently located right around the Pacific Northwest. We do have a relatively large area of snow showers right over Montana, as well as portions of Idaho, as this was expected from the computer models, and this storm system will continue to head further southeastward and eventually encounter a little bit more instability to bring some of that snow over portions of the Midwest as well as the Northeast. But right now the snowfall is light. The jet stream is rather straightened out, so it doesn't seem like this storm system will strengthen that much more. Let me show you guys the forecast from the GFS model right now. We clearly see that the jet stream is straightened out for the most part over the Ohio Valley as well as the Northeast, at least relative to what we've been seeing, because we've been seeing pretty strong jet stream dips over the past several weeks right over the eastern half of the United States. That's expected to change, especially after this week, where we're going to begin to see an influx of strong southerly winds moving in, which will help raise the temperature throughout the eastern half of the United States. But this snowstorm should still move through, and despite the lack of instability relative to what we've been seeing, it still should dump a decent amount of snowfall that you should be aware of throughout the Midwest as well as the Northeast. But taking a look, we're going to take this forecast location by location. So beginning on Thursday morning, we do see the snow is still over a large portion of Montana, and mainly eastern Montana, and we do have some snow showers right over Yellowstone and portions of Idaho, as the snow showers shouldn't be too heavy. I'll say maybe around 1 to 3 to 3 to 5 inches of snowfall in localized areas in Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. And then eventually the snow showers should move into South Dakota and Nebraska right around the evening time on Thursday, more sickly northern Nebraska. And then eventually it will move further southward. Like I said, don't expect much more than maybe 3 inches of snowfall right over South Dakota and Nebraska. And the forecast is pretty much as certain as you could ask for at this point. We're only 24 hours out from this trough moving through the Midwest, so it is very likely we're going to see conditions scenario that's very similar to this as the storm continues to head further southeastward. And then continuing to move forward, we do see that again, like I said, the jet stream is rather straightened out, so there won't be a high amount of convective activity thanks to the lack of instability, but there still will be some isolated snow showers throughout the Midwest, where in places like Iowa, Chicago, as well as northern Missouri, you shouldn't expect much more than maybe an inch of snow. I'll say less than an inch. This snowfall is going to be very light, and for a large portion of the time period, it might you might just experience overcast conditions, so it's likely going to be less than an inch of snow right over these states. And then but eventually this storm system will continue to intensify as it continues to head further eastward, but it won't intensify very much. There is just a lack of instability, so it's going to intensify fairly slowly, but it will intensify enough to where the snow bands will become a little bit heavier. The area of snowfall will become a little bit more consolidated and larger, and that will lead to higher snow totals in portions of the Northeast. We do see that in Ohio and West Virginia. We do see mainly light snow showers, but it's over a large, but this area of snow is relatively large, so you should expect right around 1 to 3 to 5 inches right over Ohio and West Virginia. And in terms of the timing, you should begin to see the snowfall move in to Ohio, West Virginia, and Western Pennsylvania right around the overnight hours on Friday. And eventually this snow should move in to the New Jersey, New York City metropolitan area right around the noontime on Friday. That's where you should begin to see some snow showers in the afternoon time, and same goes for Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore, and expect right around 1 to 3 inches. And we do see this storm system doesn't intensify quite a bit, but the center of circulation is going to be well off the coast. So, of course, the heaviest precipitation will be well off the coast as well. We could see some heavier snow bands, especially maybe right along the coastal portion of New Jersey. So you definitely need to be aware of that. And in terms of southern New England, you should expect expect the snowfall to move in, I'll say right around Friday afternoon. And Boston should expect a similar snowfall amount to New York City and Philadelphia, maybe around 1 inch of snow, 1 to 3 inches of snowfall for southern New England, as snowfall will likely stay just south of the Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont border. So in the more northward areas of the Northeast, you shouldn't expect much more snowfall. So I'm taking a look at what the GFS model is currently forecasting when it comes to snowfall from this storm system. Like I said, the forecast is as certain as you could ask for when we're this far out, or this close, I should say, to the event actually occurring. So if I were to continue to move forward, if this computer loads up, so it's not loading, but you're eventually going to see that, yeah, we're going to see mainly a large area of 1 to 3 inches of snowfall over portions, most of the Northeast, higher amounts in the higher elevations of West Virginia, to where maybe localized areas could experience over 6 inches. And same goes for those right up along the coast of Lake Erie, where you could expect maybe isolated amounts of over 6 inches of snowfall, mainly due to the fact that there is expected the snowfall will be enhanced by the lake effect, which will enhance the convective activity for some of these snow bands. So definitely be aware of that, but definitely stay prepared. Even though this isn't a ton of snowfall in the Northeast, this is going to add on to the snow and ice you've already experienced from this past snowstorm that happened around 2 days ago. So you definitely need to be prepared for potentially slick road conditions for your Friday commute. But moving on to the more long-term future, like I said, in my previous video, we are expected to maybe head into a pattern where the temperatures will rise. We're going to see we're likely going to see the polar vortex at least sort of not be as strong by the time we approach next week. We're finally going to see a strong amount of ridging build around the eastern half of the United States. And over the past few weeks, if you've been paying attention, the ridging has been centered more towards the west coast, which has been forcing the cooler jet stream winds to move towards the eastern half of the United States and bring a lot of troughs and snowstorms to the area. But now it's not expected to be the case. By the time we approach early next week, we should see a big ridge dominate the eastern half of the United States, but that doesn't completely rule out the eastern half to experience a snowstorm, because we do see along the western side of this ridge, there is a trough developing right over Texas, Oklahoma, and into Missouri that is bringing a heavier amount of rainfall and some wintry precipitation on the northern side, as there's still that possibility that there could be just enough cold air left in the Midwest for another major snowstorm to impact the Midwest and the more populated areas of the Midwest as well. Maybe Chicago could get involved, Detroit, and we even have some scenarios that do want to bring the snow a little bit further eastward into the Northeast, like what we're seeing in the GFS model's recent scenario. Right now, the GFS model is a little bit more confident that we're going to see snowfall right over Chicago, Detroit, and portions of the Northeast, but we're still going to have to wait and see. The key thing that we're going to need to pay attention to is this trough moving through Canada, because if this trough ends up being a little bit stronger, then that should allow the northerly winds to be a little bit stronger and just strong enough to keep the cold air a little bit further southward into the Midwest for places like Chicago and those areas further southward to receive snowfall. But if we see that this trough moving through, or this Alberta Clipper moving through Canada, isn't as strong as anticipated, we will see less of a pressure gradient, which means that the northerly winds will be weaker and there will be less cold air over the Midwest and Northeast for the possibility of snow to happen. So still time to iron out the forecast. I'll definitely keep you guys updated. But in terms of the timing of when you should expect this, we could see wintry precipitation right around central Illinois and Indiana, but as early as a Tuesday morning time frame, and we should eventually see the snowfall approach Chicago right around the noon time. And same goes for Detroit, where this snowfall could be heavy at times if the GFS model scenario was correct. And moving forward with the forecast, it should eventually. Right now, the GFS model is expecting this storm system to change over to rain, at least right over Chicago and maybe portions of Detroit as well. But but we still do see heavy snowfall on the northern side, and it's impacting portions of Northeast and the interior Northeast right around the late Friday timeframe. I'll say right around Friday afternoon to Friday evening. That's when the snow should move into the western Northeast in a scenario like this. And we see that Michigan gets pretty much pounded by heavier snowfall all day. And depending on how far north or south that cold air is, that'll play a big role in terms of how of determining how much snowfall you should see in the Midwest and Northeast. So I'll certainly keep you guys updated as we get a little bit more confidence from the computer model. So make sure to stay tuned to the forecast. If you were to take a look at the European model on the flip side, the European model is a bit less confident there's going to be as much cold air located in the Midwest and Northeast for the area of snowfall to be as large, and the amount of people impacted is definitely more limited in the European model scenario, because we clearly see that this is primarily a rain event for Chicago, and even as it moves further northward, it does weaken significantly as there isn't really much cold air moving as far further southward to induce a little bit more convective activity and instability. So we do see less snow in a scenario like this, but the European model is still expecting the storm system to develop either way in a very similar fashion and take somewhat of a similar trajectory. It just really all depends on how strong northerly winds will be. That will help to keep the cold air right over the Midwest as well as the Northeast. So definitely stay tuned to that over the next few weeks in the eastern half of the United States, as I'll certainly keep you guys updated. Now, take a look at what the GFS model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall from this potential Midwest snowstorm. So the GFS model, of course, is the model that is a little bit more confident that we're going to see a more significant snowstorm from the Midwest and the Northeast as well. So if we were to take a look at that, we do see the GFS model in a scenario like this. If the scenario was 100% correct, we'd see close to 6 to 8 inches of snowfall right around Chicago, and same goes for Michigan, where a large portion of Michigan would experience 6 to 10 inches of snowfall in a scenario like this, and same goes to the interior portions of the Northeast, and northern Pennsylvania could get involved in 3 to 6 inches. So this could potentially be a more significant snowstorm. The European model, of course, is taking less snowfall than this, thanks to the fact that it expects a weaker storm. So we're definitely going to need to see which computer model caves into the other, because that'll be key in determining the confidence of this forecast once we approach early next week. But like I said, the worst of the impact should happen right anywhere between Tuesday morning and Tuesday night when it comes to this next potential major Midwest snowstorm. So definitely stay tuned for more updates. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.